My name is Camille Ashford. I am 34 years old. 2 Christmases ago, my brother added me to the family group chat by mistake. 51 messages. Every one of them about a holiday they were planning without me for the 3rd year running. My mother typed it out in plain black letters. Make sure Camille doesn't find out. My brother replied right underneath it, just tell her the wrong day again like last year. My father sent back a laughing face. I was alone in a hotel room nearly 600 miles from home. And I read every word twice. I saved every screenshot. On Christmas morning, I typed one line back into that chat. Merry Christmas. Everyone. Your realtor is going to explain the rest. The chat went silent. Then the calls started. 62 of them in under 2 hours. None of them had bothered to check one small detail. A document filed at the county recorder's office 9 years earlier. Signed by a woman who loved me more than the rest of them combined. Ever managed to, if you've ever been the person left off the list. The one everyone assumes will just go along with it. Stay with me. This one is for you. It was the first week of December. And I was staying at a hotel outside Asheville, North Carolina. 3 weeks into a parking deck inspection job. Eating takeout at my laptop most nights. My phone started buzzing around 9 in the evening. I picked it up to find a thread I'd never been added to. Titled with a Christmas tree emoji and the word fam. 51 messages were already stacked underneath it. My younger sister, Lacey, sent a private text right after oops. Wrong chat. Ignore that. Haha. Too late. I was already scrolling. The first messages were logistics. My brother Derek asked if the 25th worked for everyone. My mother, Renata, confirmed. My father, Walter, sent a thumbs up. Then the tone shifted. My mother, we should use the good china this year. Camille won't be here to complain about hand washing it. Derek, Finally, a relaxed Christmas. I kept scrolling. My name appeared 0 times in the planning and 5 times in what I can only call the managing. Derek again, just tell her the wrong date. Same as last year. My mother say we're doing something small on the 28th. Lacey, what if she finds out this time, my mother? She won't. She never does. I set the phone down. Picked it back up. Set it down again. 51 messages. And not one had invited me. 5 had worked. Specifically, to keep me away. I should explain who I am. Because it matters for what comes next. I'm a structural engineer. I evaluate load-bearing systems in bridges and parking structures. Licensed 10 years. On the road about 40% of the time. I'm good at my job because I'm patient with details and I don't skip steps. Those happen to be qualities my family never once found interesting. Growing up outside Millbrook, North Carolina, I was the quiet middle child, while Derek played varsity football and Lacey competed in pageants. I told myself, busy families, forget the quiet ones sometimes. And I kept telling myself that for years. I mailed the holiday gifts on time every year. I booked the restaurant for my mother's birthday 3 years running. When the roof leaked during a storm and Derek was too busy to check on it, I called a roofer from a job site in Tennessee and paid the deposit over the phone. I never asked to be thanked. I assumed being useful was the same as being included, and still. Last December, I drove up to the house on the 28th, the date they'd given me, with a dish of scalloped potatoes, and found the door locked and the lights off. I called my mother. She picked up on the 5th ring. Voice light as air. Oh, honey. I thought we told you. We did Christmas on the 25th. It was last minute. I stood on that porch holding potatoes going cold and said, That's fine. My mistake. It was not my mistake. I just didn't know that yet. Back in the hotel. Still scrolling. I reached the message that made my stomach drop. Derek closing is set for the 26th. Keep her away until then. Closing. 2 messages later. My mother. The buyer wants a walk-through Christmas afternoon. We need the house empty by noon. A buyer. A walk-through. They were selling something. And they needed me out of the way to do it. I could only think of one place. My grandmother's house. The yellow farmhouse on Larkspur Lane. 2 stories. A porch that wrapped around the south side. White trim my father used to repaint every 5 years. I had lived there the summer after freshman year, when I couldn't afford the dorm deposit. My grandmother, Nan Josie, let me sleep in the upstairs room with the slanted ceiling, made me coffee every morning at 6, and told me to study hard and not worry about the rest. That house was the only place I never had to explain myself. I still carried a key to it. Heavy brass, cut in a style they don't make anymore. She had given it to me the year she turned 76. In front of the whole family at Thanksgiving, pressing it into my palm and saying, "This is your home whenever you need one." Camille. My mother rolled her eyes. Derek was on his phone. My father nodded and went back to the game. None of them thought it meant a thing. Nan Josie had died 3 years earlier. Her house should have passed through a will or a trust. Something I'd have been told about. Nobody had ever mentioned an attorney, a closing date, or a buyer. Not until 51 messages fell into my lap by accident. Before I said a word to anyone, I needed the paperwork, not the feelings. I searched the county recorder's site for the address. 211 Larkspur Lane. The results were plain: the original purchase deed from 1975. A refinance from 1999. A mortgage satisfaction from 2009. And one more entry, a quitclaim deed recorded 9 years earlier. The scan loaded slightly crooked, the way old county scans always do. Quitclaim deed. Grantor Josephine Marie Ashford. Grantees Renata Louise Ashford Cole and Camille Elizabeth Ashford. As tenants in common. I read it again. I wasn't looking at a sentimental gesture. I was looking at a recorded legal instrument stating I owned half that house. On paper. Filed with the county. Searchable by anyone with a browser. Nan Josie hadn't just handed me a key. She'd put my name on the deed. Quietly. Through the proper legal channel. With a notary stamp and a filing number. Because she knew a key could be taken back, but a recorded document could not be wished away. There was no later transfer. No release of my interest anywhere in the record. The county recorder didn't care that I hadn't visited in 3 years. It only knew what was filed. And what was filed said, I was an owner. I remembered the day she signed it. I was 26. Home for a weekend because she'd had a minor stroke 2 months earlier. The kind that resolves but warns you the next one might not. By the time I arrived, she was sharp again, making sweet tea like nothing had happened. But she had an appointment the next morning and wanted me along. I assumed it was medical. It wasn't. We drove to a small notary office on Main Street. She explained calmly that she wanted to add me to the title. Tenants in common. So the house wouldn't get tangled in probate later. And so I'd have a place that belonged to me. We signed. The whole errand took under an hour. When we got back, my mother's face went flat. You're putting Camille on the deed. Not me, Nan Josie said. You're already on it. Renata. Now Camille is too. My mother said. This is dramatic. Mom. She doesn't even live here. Nan Josie just said. The paper's filed. It's done. Back in the hotel. 2 in the morning. I toggled between the deed scan and the chat screenshots, the way I cross-reference a field report against the original drawings. The deed said I was a co-owner. The chat said they were selling. And the arithmetic was simple. You cannot cleanly sell a house when someone else's name is on the title. That isn't a loophole. That's property law. If my name was on the recorded deed, no title company would clear a closing without questions. And stalling a closing a week before Christmas is close enough to killing it. The closing was set for the 26th. It was the 3rd of December. 23 days. The next morning my mother called. Warm as ever. So Christmas. We're keeping it small. Just the 4 of us. But if you're back by the 28th, come by for leftovers. The 28th. Delivered right on schedule. Straight from the script I'd already read. That sounds fine. Mom, I said. She laughed and hung up. I didn't laugh. No pause. No stumble. No flicker of hesitation in the word 28th. Just a number. Delivered smooth as a receptionist, confirming an appointment. A few days later, Lacey called. Talking too much the way she does when nervous. And mentioned Derek's auto shop was struggling. The bank had sent letters. And our mother had co-signed his loan and was on the hook if he defaulted. She trailed off. But I didn't need her to finish. Derek's business was failing. My mother's credit was exposed. Selling the paid-off Larkspur Lane house, worth somewhere around $260,000, was the fastest way to cover the gap. It wasn't personal cruelty. It was financial triage. And I was the complication they'd routed around instead of included. I called a real estate attorney in Asheville. No connection to my family. I explained the situation in about 4 minutes. That closing is almost certainly not happening without you, he said. No title company would issue a clear policy with an unreleased co-owner on record. If my family tried to force it, they'd need to file a partition action. A lawsuit. Heard in open court. On the public record. Taking months. Your signature isn't optional here, he said. It's structural. I almost smiled at that word. It's my job. Finding the piece that holds everything else together. The one you cannot remove without the whole system shifting. I could have called my mother that night and laid it all out. I knew exactly how that call would go. She'd cry. Reframe. Tell me I was hurting her by being hurt. And somewhere around the 12th minute, I'd find myself apologizing for noticing what she'd done. I decided I wouldn't give her that chance again. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a process. An outcome that didn't depend on anyone's guilty conscience. Because I was no longer sure one was available to me. 4 days before Christmas. An email arrived from my mother. No subject line. Just an attachment titled Estate Paperwork. And one sentence, Camille. Can you sign these and send back before the 24th? Just routine estate paperwork from Nan's trust? It was not routine. It was a deed of sale. Transferring all interest in the house to a buyer named Martin Kowalski for $262,000. My signature line sat on page 4. Flagged with a yellow tab reading sign here in Lacey's handwriting. The disbursement page routed the full proceeds, minus closing costs, to a single account. My mother's. Not split. Not shared. My name was on the signature line and nowhere in the payment section. They wanted my ownership for free. And they hadn't even bothered to disguise it well. I forwarded the file to my attorney. I did not sign it. I did not reply to the email either. On Christmas Eve, the chat lit up once more. Derek posted a photo of the house. Freshly staged. A wreath on the door that wasn't Nan Josie's. My mother typed, "Tomorrow is going to be perfect. Don't forget. Nobody mentions Camille. She thinks it's the 28th. My father sent a small holiday emoji in reply. I read it from my own couch with a mug of tea going cold in my hands. 3 words summarized an entire decade of holiday math. It wasn't casual. It was policy. Christmas morning. I woke early, made coffee, and sat at my desk. The chat was already moving. A photo from my mother of the table, set for 4. I counted the plates the way I count rebar spacing on a drawing. Precisely. Without feeling anything about the number itself, At 9:48 in the morning, I sent the message I'd saved as a draft 3 weeks earlier. Merry Christmas. Everyone. Your realtor is going to explain the rest. One line. No emoji. Just a sentence and a period. A typing bubble appeared under my mother's name. Then disappeared. Under Derek's. Then gone. Nobody sent a word for nearly 2 full minutes. The kind of silence that means everybody has too much to say. Not too little. Then the phone started ringing. Derek first. Straight to voicemail. Lacey tried 3 times in under 2 minutes. My mother called over and over, the phone buzzing itself across the desk with every call. My father sent one text. The first real one in months. Call your mother. I let it run for exactly 1 hour and counted. Derek 15 calls. Lacey 11. My mother 24. My father 3 calls and 2 texts. Total 62. For 3 years straight. None of them had bothered to call me on Christmas Day. Now they couldn't stop. I learned later, through Lacey and through what the realtor confirmed to my attorney, that the agent, Denise Callahan, had left my mother a voicemail 2 days before Christmas, warning that the title search had turned up an unresolved co-owner and recommending the closing be paused. My mother never told anyone. She assumed she could smooth it over after the holiday. She buried the warning the same quiet, confident way she'd buried every complication I'd ever represented. My one message turned the problem she planned to postpone into a crisis she couldn't contain in front of the whole table. Derek called the realtor around 10:15 and got the same explanation: 2 owners on the title. Only one had authorized the sale, and without my consent, the closing could not proceed. According to Lacey, he set his phone down on the table and said, "She's on the deed. The whole thing's dead." At 11:20, I called my mother back. Just once. Because I wanted her to hear it from me directly. She answered before the first ring finished. "Camille, what have you done?" I could hear the room behind her. On speaker. "Good." I thought, I want everyone to hear this. I haven't done anything. "Mom," I said. Denise ran a standard title search. She found my name on a deed that's been public record for 9 years. She paused the closing, which is exactly what title companies are supposed to do. "You are ruining this family," my mother said. In the background, "Derek, this is insane. She hasn't lived there in years." I let it pass. Then said, "You told me the wrong date again. You planned a sale around my absence. You sent me a deed of sale disguised as routine paperwork and hoped I wouldn't read it." I read it. Silence. Then, softer. "The pivot toward guilt we were going to tell you. You would have gotten your share." "When?" I asked. "Before or after closing?" She didn't answer. My father's voice. Quietly. From somewhere in the room, "We shouldn't have done it this way." Nobody responded to him. That was the only honest sentence he offered all year. I gave them my attorney's information and said any further conversation about the property needed to go through him. I told them I meant it when I wished them a Merry Christmas. Then I hung up and sat in the quiet of my own apartment, where nobody was planning anything behind my back. The closing on the 26th never happened. The buyer withdrew 2 days later, citing the unresolved title issue. Derek's loan went into default in January, with no lump sum left to cover it. I didn't hear that from my family. I heard it from Lacey, who called in February sounding small and worn out, saying everything's falling apart. I told her I was sorry it was hard, and I meant it. Then I told her I was open to discussing the property, but only through a proper mediation, with a neutral third party, and only if my ownership was fully acknowledged from the start. No more side conversations. No more hidden signature tabs. The mediation happened in March. My mother, Derek, and my father came. Lacey said she couldn't handle it. and stayed home. Which was at least honest. My mother cried twice in the first hour. Once in a way that felt rehearsed. And once, near the end, in a way that felt real. When the numbers were laid out plainly, and she understood the house her own mother had built a life in was now something she couldn't resolve without the daughter she'd spent 3 years pushing to the margins. I offered 2 options. We could sell together. Proceeds split 50-50, as the deed stated, with a transparent closing this time. Or I would buy out my mother's share at a fair market value set by an independent appraiser. I didn't offer a third option. And I didn't negotiate against myself. Derek finally spoke. Nan would have wanted us to keep it in the family. I looked at him for a long moment. Nan did keep it in the family. I said. She put my name on it. The question is whether you consider me part of that family. We agreed to sell. The house went on the market that April with a different agent. Since my mother refused to work with Denise again, it sold in May for $255,000. My share after closing costs came to just under $120,000. I put it into a savings account and haven't touched it since, before the new owners moved in. I drove out to Larkspur Lane one last time, walked up the porch steps, and put the brass key in the lock. It still turned. The door opened onto an empty house that smelled like fresh paint. I stood where Nan Josie's armchair used to sit. And I didn't cry. I just looked around for a while, said thank you to no one and to everyone at once, and pulled the door shut behind me. I slid the key off my ring and left it on the porch railing. The one piece of Nan Josie that belonged to the house, instead of to me. It was never about the money. It was about 3 Christmases spent making sure I wouldn't find out. 3 years of wrong dates and locked doors. And not one of them ever stopping to remember that the woman they kept leaving off the guest list had been written onto the deed years earlier by the one person in that family who actually saw her clearly. That's my story. 51 messages, 1 reply, and 62 phone calls I let ring straight through to voicemail. If this reminded you that your name belongs in your own life and not in someone else's footnotes, take that as your sign today. And if someone you love needs to hear it too, pass it along to them.